Before I continue with this story, you need to understand something. By the time I walked out of that country club, past the chandeliers and the people in their $1,000 suits, I already knew exactly how to dismantle everything they'd built on lies. The documents were in my truck. The phone numbers were in my contacts. And the truth? The truth was about to cost them everything. But let me back up. My name is Robert Chen. Most people call me Bob. I'm 62 years old, and for the past 40 years, I've been a plumber in Portland, Oregon. Not the glamorous kind of work that gets you invited to fancy parties or mentioned in business magazines, but honest work. The kind where you fix what's broken, you charge a fair price, and you sleep well at night knowing you didn't cheat anyone. I raised my son Michael by myself after his mother passed when he was 8. Pancreatic cancer, 4 months from diagnosis to funeral. Those were dark years, but we made it through. I taught Michael everything I knew about plumbing, about hard work, about treating people with respect, regardless of what they did for a living. He worked with me through high school, and I was proud of him. He was good with his hands, good with people, and smart, really smart. So when he got a full scholarship to Oregon State for computer science, I was thrilled. First person in our family to go to college. I worked extra jobs to help with his living expenses, to make sure he could focus on his studies without worrying about money. He graduated with honors, moved to Seattle, got a job at Amazon. I couldn't have been prouder. Then he met Victoria. Victoria Hartwell came from old Seattle money. Her father owned a commercial real estate empire. Her mother sat on the boards of 3 nonprofits. Victoria herself had an MBA from Stanford and worked in venture capital. When Michael first told me about her, I was happy for him. He deserved someone ambitious, someone who matched his drive. Their wedding was at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel in Seattle. 300 guests. I wore the nicest suit I owned, bought specifically for the occasion from Men's Warehouse. I felt out of place among all those people in their designer clothes. But Michael seemed happy, so I was happy. That was 3 years ago. Things changed after the wedding. Michael and I used to talk every week. Then it became every month. Then every few months. He was busy. I understood that. He and Victoria had started their own company, some kind of tech startup dealing with supply chain management software. Vision Flow Technologies, they called it. I didn't really understand what they did, but Michael said they were getting funding from investors, that they were going to change the industry. He sounded excited when he talked about it, though those conversations became rarer and rarer. Then came the invitation. It arrived in the mail on a Tuesday, heavy cardstock with embossed letters. Vision Flow Technologies was hosting a gala to celebrate closing their Series B funding round. $27 million, the invitation said. The event would be at the Columbia Tower Club in Seattle, the Saturday before Thanksgiving. Cocktail attire required. I almost didn't go. I called Michael to congratulate him on the funding. He sounded pleased, but distracted. You got the invitation, right, Dad? I did. That's amazing news about the funding. $27 million. I can't even imagine that kind of money. There was a pause. Yeah. Listen, about the gala. You're coming, right? I was planning to. Unless you'd rather I didn't. I know it's probably a work thing. Lots of important people. No, you should come. Victoria's parents will be there. All our investors. It's important. Another pause. Just, when people ask what you do, maybe just say you're in property maintenance or facilities management. Something like that. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. You mean don't tell them I'm a plumber? It's not like that, Dad. It's just these people, they're very status conscious, and I don't want... He stopped himself. Never mind. Just come, please. I want you there. Property maintenance, I repeated. Yeah. Or just say you're retired. That works too. I should have said something then. Should have asked him when he'd become ashamed of what I did for a living. But I didn't. I told him I'd be there, and I hung up feeling smaller than I had in years. The gala was on November 19th. I drove up to Seattle that Saturday afternoon, my good suit hanging in the back of my truck. I'd polished my shoes that morning, gotten a haircut the day before. I wanted to look presentable. Wanted Michael to be proud to have me there, even if he was ashamed of what I did for a living. The Columbia Tower Club is on the 76th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay and the Olympic Mountains. The kind of place where appetizers cost more than my grocery bill for a week. I gave my name at the door, and a young woman in a black dress checked me off a list and directed me inside. The space was packed with people. Men in expensive suits, women in cocktail dresses and jewelry that probably cost more than my truck. Waitstaff circulated with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres I couldn't identify. A string quartet played in the corner. Everything was sleek, modern, minimalist. Everything was perfect. I found Michael near the bar, talking to a group of men in their 40s. He saw me and waved me over, though I noticed his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "Dad, hey, glad you made it." He turned to the men. "Everyone, this is my father, Robert Chen. Dad, this is James Whitmore and David Park from Sequoia Capital, and Marcus Chen from Andreessen Horowitz." I shook their hands. They had the firm grips of men who spent a lot of time at networking events. "Nice to meet you all. Congratulations on the investment." "Thank you," James said. "Michael and Victoria have built something special here. We're excited to be part of the journey." "So, Robert," David said, holding his champagne glass, "what do you do?" I glanced at Michael. He was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Warning, maybe. Or pleading. "I'm a plumber," I said. "Have my own business in Portland." The temperature in the conversation dropped about 20 degrees. "Oh," David said. "That's nice." "A plumber," James repeated, like he was trying to understand a foreign word. "So you, fix toilets and things?" "Among other things. Water heaters, gas lines, drainage systems, whatever needs fixing." Marcus, the other Chen, gave me a polite smile. "Well, someone has to do it, right?" I'd heard variations of that line my whole life. Someone has to do it. Like it was something to be tolerated, a necessary evil, not a skilled trade that required years of learning and problem solving. Michael stepped in quickly. "Dad's been doing it for 40 years. Very successful business." "I'm sure," James said, though his tone suggested he wasn't sure at all. "If you'll excuse us, we need to speak with the CFO." They nodded politely and drifted away. "Property maintenance," Michael said quietly when they were gone. "I asked you to say property maintenance. You asked me to lie about what I do. It's not lying. It's positioning. There's a difference." He looked around, lowered his voice. "These people, Dad, they don't understand blue-collar work. They think tech is the only thing that matters. I need them to take me seriously. And having a plumber for a father makes that hard? You don't get it. This is a different world. These investors, they're backing us because they think we have the right pedigree, the right connections, the right background. Victoria went to Stanford. I worked at Amazon. That matters to them. And what I taught you, what I did to put you through school, that doesn't matter? Of course it matters. But it's not something I need to advertise here. Please, just try to blend in, talk to people, be social, but maybe don't lead with the plumbing thing." He walked away before I could respond. I stood there for a moment, feeling very old and very out of place. Then I went to the bar and ordered a whiskey, neat. The bartender, a kid probably in his 20s, poured it with practiced efficiency. "Tough crowd?" he asked. "Something like that." "Yeah, I've worked a lot of these tech events. Everyone's trying to prove they're the smartest person in the room." He slid the glass across to me. "For what it's worth, I think it's cool that you're a plumber. My dad's a plumber too. Taught me everything about work ethic." I felt marginally better. "What's your name, son?" "Danny." "Your dad taught you right, Danny. Thanks for the drink." I spent the next hour circulating through the room, trying to make small talk with people who clearly weren't interested in talking to me. When they asked what I did, I started saying I was retired, and that seemed to satisfy them. Retired suggested I'd had a career worth retiring from, something important. Then came the speeches. Victoria took the stage first, stunning in a black designer dress. She talked about Vision Flow's vision, their mission, their growth trajectory. She thanked the investors. She thanked the team. She talked about innovation and disruption and all the buzzwords that tech people love. Then she introduced Michael. He bounded up to the stage, confident and polished in a way I'd never seen before. This wasn't the kid I'd raised, the one who'd worked with me in muddy crawl spaces and frozen attics. This was someone else, someone slick and rehearsed. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began. 3 years ago, Victoria and I had an idea. We saw inefficiency in the supply chain sector, and we knew we could build something better. But building a company isn't just about having a good idea. It's about having the right team, the right vision, and the right DNA. He clicked to the next slide. Photos of the leadership team appeared on the screen behind him. Victoria brought her strategic thinking, her Stanford education, her understanding of market dynamics. I brought my technical expertise from Amazon, my understanding of scalable systems. Our CTO, Lisa Yao, brought her MIT pedigree and her experience at Google. Our CFO, Brandon Walsh, brought his Harvard MBA and his years at Goldman Sachs. He paused for effect. "My father once told me that you are who you surround yourself with." And I looked around at our team, at our investors, at this room tonight, and I realized something. We've surrounded ourselves with excellence, with people who went to the right schools, worked at the right companies, made the right connections. He clicked to another slide, a graph showing their projected growth. Success in tech isn't just about working hard. Anyone can work hard. It's about working smart. It's about leveraging your network, your credentials, your pedigree. My father, he's a blue-collar guy, worked with his hands his whole life. And he taught me the value of hard work. But I had to unlearn some things too. I had to learn that in this world, where you went to school matters. Who you know matters. Your background matters. Someone near me whispered, "Is that his father over there?" I realized they were looking at me. Michael continued, oblivious or uncaring. I grew up in a working-class household. My father fixed toilets for a living, and I respect that. I really do. But I knew from an early age that I wanted more. I wanted to be the person who builds the systems, not the person who fixes the leaks. I wanted to be in the boardroom, not the boiler room. Scattered laughter from the crowd. So I got a scholarship, got out, got educated, got connected. And now, here we are. $27 million in funding, partnerships with Fortune 500 companies, a team of Stanford, MIT, and Harvard graduates. We've built something that my father, with all due respect, could never understand. This is complex systems thinking. This is enterprise-level problem solving. This is the future. He raised his glass. So here's to leaving behind the old ways of doing things. Here's to innovation. Here's to the future. And here's to surrounding yourself with people who understand that future. Everyone applauded. I set down my whiskey glass and walked out. I made it to the elevator before Michael caught up with me. "Dad, wait." I turned. "Is that really what you think? That everything I taught you, everything I built, was something you had to leave behind?" "I didn't mean it like that. It's just how you talk at these things. It's inspirational storytelling. You told 200 people that I fixed toilets and that you had to unlearn what I taught you. That's not inspirational. That's cruel. You're being too sensitive. Nobody thought anything of it." "I did. I thought something of it. I pressed the elevator button. Congratulations on your funding, Michael. I hope it was worth it." "Dad, come on. Don't leave like this." The elevator arrived. I stepped in. "I'm not the one who left, son. You left a long time ago." I drove back to Portland that night, anger and hurt churning in my chest. I kept replaying Michael's words. Worked with his hands his whole life. Fixed toilets for a living. Could never understand. When I got home, it was past midnight. I sat in my truck in the driveway for a long time, staring at my house. It wasn't much. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, built in 1978. But I'd bought it with my own money. Paid off the mortgage in 20 years. Raised my son here. Every pipe in the place I'd installed or repaired myself. It was honest work. I went inside, poured myself another whiskey, and sat at my kitchen table. That's when I saw it. My laptop was still open from earlier that day. I'd been checking my email, looking at some supply orders. But there was a folder on the desktop I didn't recognize. Vision Flow Docs, it was labeled. I frowned. Then I remembered. Michael had used my laptop about 6 months ago when his died during a visit. He must have synced some files to my cloud storage and forgotten about them. I almost closed it. Almost decided it wasn't my business. But then I thought about what he'd said tonight. About how I could never understand what he built. About complex systems thinking. So I opened the folder. Inside were dozens of documents. Financial projections, pitch decks, investor reports, technical specifications. I started reading. I'm not stupid, despite what Michael apparently thought. I run a business. I understand profit and loss, revenue and expenses. And as I read through these documents, something didn't add up. Their pitch deck claimed they had 12 enterprise clients, each paying between $200,000 and $500,000 annually. The investor reports showed revenue of $4.2 million last year. But the technical specifications told a different story. The system they'd built, according to their own documentation, was basically a fancy spreadsheet interface. There was no AI, no machine learning, none of the advanced technology they described to investors. It was a data visualization tool that connected to existing ERP systems, something that probably took 3 months to build, not the 3 years they claimed. And the clients? I recognized some of the names from the Portland business community. I knew people at these companies. Some of them I'd done work for. I spent the next hour cross-referencing the claims in VisionFlow's investor deck with what I could find online. Press releases, company announcements, LinkedIn profiles. By 3 a.m, I had a pretty clear picture. Of the 12 clients VisionFlow claimed, only 4 appeared to actually exist as customers. And based on the press releases from those companies, they were pilot programs, free trials to test the software, not paid contracts. The revenue numbers were fabricated. The technology was misrepresented. The whole thing was built on lies. I sat back in my chair, staring at my laptop screen. My son and his wife had just raised $27 million from some of the most prestigious venture capital firms in the country. They'd done it by lying about their technology, their customers, and their revenue. That's fraud. Securities fraud, specifically the kind that sends people to prison. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark kitchen, thinking I could ignore this, delete the files, pretend I'd never seen them. Michael was my son. He'd made mistakes, big ones, but he was still my son. But then I thought about those investors. Sure, they were rich. Sure, they could probably absorb the loss. But they'd invested in good faith, based on information they believed to be true. They'd been lied to. And I thought about the other employees at VisionFlow. The ones who didn't know the foundation was rotten. The ones who'd left good jobs to join this company. Who'd moved their families. Who'd bet their careers on something that was built on lies. And I thought about Michael's words. I had to unlearn some things. It's about working smart, surrounding yourself with excellence. This wasn't excellence. This was fraud dressed up in a nice suit. I made a decision. The next morning, Sunday, I started digging deeper. I knew a few people in the Portland tech scene. I called them, casually asking about VisionFlow. What did they think of the company? Did they know anyone who'd worked with them? One name kept coming up, Jennifer Morrison. She'd been VisionFlow's first hire, their senior software engineer. She'd left about 6 months ago, around the same time Michael had visited and synced those files to my laptop. I found her LinkedIn profile. She was now working at a startup in Portland. I sent her a message saying I was Robert Chen, Michael's father, and I'd like to talk to her about VisionFlow if she had time. She responded within an hour. We met at a coffee shop near her office Monday morning. Jennifer was in her early 30s, bright and articulate. She shook my hand firmly when we met. Mr. Chen, I have to say, I'm curious why you want to talk about VisionFlow. I was at their gala Saturday night. Michael gave a speech about their success, but some things he said didn't sit right with me. I did some digging, and I found documents that raise questions. Her expression changed. What kind of documents? I showed her my laptop, the pitch decks, the technical specs, the revenue claims. She stared at the screen for a long time. Then she looked up at me. Do you know why I left VisionFlow? Tell me. I left because I couldn't be part of what they were doing. She took a breath. When I started there, I believed in the mission. Michael and Victoria were charismatic, smart. They had a vision. But about a year in, things started to change. They were getting pressure from their Series A investors to show traction, to prove the model worked. So they faked it. They started small, exaggerating the capabilities of the software, calling pilot programs enterprise deals. But then it got worse. They created fake customer testimonials. They fabricated case studies. They even set up shell companies to pose as clients, complete with websites and LinkedIn profiles. My God. I confronted Michael about it. He said it was normal in the tech world, that everyone embellishes a little, that investors expect you to sell the vision, not the reality. He said I was being naive. She shook her head. I told him I couldn't be part of it. He asked me to sign an NDA with a non-disparagement clause before I left. Said if I ever talked about Vision Flow's internal operations, they'd sue me for everything I had. Did you sign it? I did. I needed the reference, needed to move on. But Mr. Chen, if you have documentation of what they're doing, if you have proof, people need to know. Those investors, they're putting money into something that's fundamentally dishonest. And eventually, it's all going to collapse. When it does, it won't just be Michael and Victoria who suffer. It'll be all the employees, all the people who believed in what they were building. I need to think about this. I understand. But if you decide to do something, I'll back you up. NDA or not, I can't stay silent if someone's willing to bring this to light. She wrote down her phone number. Call me if you need anything. I spent the rest of that week in a haze. I fixed leaky faucets and installed water heaters and snaked clogged drains, all while my mind churned over what to do. Michael called twice. I didn't answer. Victoria called once. I didn't answer that either. On Friday, I made another decision. I contacted the SEC's whistleblower office. I filled out their online form, describing what I'd found. I uploaded the documents from Michael's synced files. I included Jennifer Morrison's contact information with her permission. 2 days later, an SEC investigator called me. Her name was Agent Sarah Kowalski. We talked for 90 minutes. She asked detailed questions about how I'd obtained the documents, about what I knew of Vision Flow's operations, about my relationship with Michael. Mr. Chen, she said at the end of the call, this is serious. If what you're alleging is true, we're looking at multiple counts of securities fraud, wire fraud, and investor deception. Your son could face federal charges. I know. Are you sure you want to proceed with this? Once we start investigating, there's no taking it back. I thought about Michael's speech, about how he'd unlearned what I taught him, about how he'd traded integrity for success. I'm sure. Okay. We'll be in touch. This investigation is confidential. Don't discuss it with anyone, including your son. The investigation took 3 months. During that time, I went about my life. I worked. I saw my regular customers. I went to my Thursday night poker game with the same guys I'd been playing with for 20 years. I acted normal, even though my insides were churning. Michael called me once during this time, right before Christmas. I answered, "Hey, Dad. I know we haven't talked since the gala. I wanted to apologize if I said anything that hurt you. That wasn't my intention." "Okay. So, are we good?" "Sure, Michael. We're good." "Great. Listen, we're doing Christmas at Victoria's parents' place in Bellevue this year. You're welcome to come if you want." "I think I'll pass. But thanks for the invitation." "Okay. Well, Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas, son." The SEC's investigation went public in February. The headline in the Seattle Times read, "Local tech startup under federal investigation for investor fraud." The article detailed how Vision Flow Technologies had allegedly misrepresented its technology, fabricated customer relationships, and inflated revenue figures to secure funding from venture capital firms. The SEC had frozen the company's assets pending the investigation. Michael Chen and Victoria Chen were named as subjects of the inquiry. My phone started ringing off the hook. Michael called 17 times that first day. I didn't answer. Victoria called, left a voicemail. "You did this, didn't you?" You couldn't stand that Michael was successful, so you had to tear it down. You're pathetic. My friends from the poker game called, asking if I was okay, if I'd seen the news. Even Danny, the bartender from the Gala, somehow found my number and called. Mr. Chen, I don't know if you remember me, but we talked at the Vision Flow event. I just saw the news. I wanted to say, my dad always told me that doing the right thing is usually the hard thing. I think you did the right thing. The investigation concluded in April. The SEC's report was damning. Vision Flow had defrauded investors of $27 million through material misrepresentations and omissions. 9 of the 12 claimed enterprise clients didn't exist. The technology was nowhere near as sophisticated as represented. The revenue figures were fabricated. Michael and Victoria were charged with securities fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy. They faced up to 20 years in federal prison and millions in fines. The venture capital firms filed civil suits to recover their investments. Vision Flow Technologies shut down. 43 employees lost their jobs. Michael finally showed up at my house in May. I was in my garage, organizing tools, when I heard a car pull up. I looked out and saw him getting out of his Tesla. He looked terrible. Thin, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes. "Dad," he said when I met him in the driveway, "we need to talk." "About what?" "You know what? You're the one who turned us in. You're the whistleblower." "How do you know that?" Victoria's lawyer did some digging. "The SEC had documents that were synced to your laptop. It had to be you." He stared at me. "How could you do this? I'm your son, and you're a fraud." "We were building something. Yes, we exaggerated some things, but every startup does that. You were supposed to be on my side." "I am on your side. That's why I did this." "How is destroying my company being on my side?" "Your company was built on lies, Michael. It was going to collapse eventually. Better now, before more people got hurt, before you dug yourself deeper. You don't understand the tech world. You're just a plumber. You don't understand how this works." That word, just a plumber. "You're right," I said. "I'm just a plumber. I just fix things when they're broken. I just charge people honestly for honest work. I just sleep well at night knowing I didn't build my life on lies." I stepped closer to him. "You want to know what I understand? I understand that integrity matters. I understand that you don't cheat people, even if you can get away with it. I understand that how you build something matters just as much as what you build. You ruined my life." "No, son. You ruined your own life. I just refuse to be complicit in it." He stood there, shaking with anger or grief or both. "Mom would be ashamed of you." That hit harder than anything else he could have said. "Your mother," I said slowly, "taught you that honesty matters. She taught you to treat people with dignity and respect. She taught you that where you come from doesn't define you, but how you treat people does. If she was here, she'd be heartbroken at what you became. But she'd be proud that someone loved you enough to stop you before you completely destroyed yourself. I don't want your love. I don't want anything from you." He turned toward his car. "Michael." He stopped, but didn't turn around. "Your mother and I, we raised you to be better than this. And somewhere under all the Stanford MBAs and venture capital and fancy speeches, that person is still there. The kid who worked with me in crawl spaces. The kid who brought me coffee on cold mornings. The kid who was proud of where he came from." My voice cracked. "I hope you find him again." He got in his car and drove away. That was the last time I saw him. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Michael and Victoria both pled guilty to reduced charges in exchange for cooperation. Michael got 30 months in federal prison and a $500,000 fine. Victoria got 24 months and a $400,000 fine. Both were banned from serving as officers of any publicly traded company for 10 years. The venture capital firms recovered about 40 cents on the dollar from the bankruptcy proceedings. Jennifer Morrison testified at the trial. Afterward, she wrote me an email thanking me for having the courage to come forward. She said a dozen former employees had reached out to her, relieved that the truth had finally come out. The SEC awarded me $2.7 million as a whistleblower reward, 10% of the recovered funds. I donated most of it, half to a scholarship fund for students from working-class backgrounds studying engineering, a quarter to a nonprofit that provides free coding classes to low-income kids. I kept enough to pay off the mortgage on my shop and set aside some for retirement. People ask me if I regret what I did. I don't. Would I have preferred a different outcome? Of course. I'd prefer that my son had built his company on truth instead of lies. I'd prefer that he'd remembered the values his mother and I taught him. I'd prefer that I could call him right now and talk about his day, his life, his future. But we don't always get to choose our outcomes. We only get to choose our actions. Michael made his choices. I made mine. Today's Thursday. I'm heading to my poker game in about an hour. Same guys I've been playing with for 20 years. Frank, the electrician. Tom, the carpenter. Dave, the HVAC guy. Mike, the mason. All of us with calluses on our hands and pride in our work. We'll play cards, drink beer, tell the same stories we've been telling for decades. We'll talk about our kids, our jobs, our aching backs and creaking knees. We'll give each other grief about bad poker hands and worse jokes. And at some point, probably around 10 o'clock, Frank will say what he always says. Same time next week, and we'll all nod. Because that's what we do. We show up, we do our work, we keep our word. It's not glamorous. It's not going to make us millionaires or get us featured in Forbes or invited to galas with champagne and string quartets. But it's honest. And in the end, that's all that really matters. There's this thing I learned in my 40 years as a plumber, something I tried to teach Michael when he was growing up. The foundation matters. It doesn't matter how beautiful the house looks, how expensive the fixtures are, how impressive the architecture is. If the foundation is cracked, if the pipes are corroded, if the structure itself is compromised, eventually it all comes down. You can paint over problems. You can hide them behind drywall and fancy finishes. But water always finds the cracks. Truth always finds the light. Michael and Victoria built something that looked impressive from the outside. Sleek offices, prestigious investors, a $27 million valuation. But the foundation was rotten, and when the truth came out, like I knew it would, the whole thing collapsed. I think about that gala sometimes. About standing in that room full of people who thought they were better than me because they went to the right schools and worked in the right industries. People who measured worth in degrees and stock options and LinkedIn connections. I wonder if any of them think about that night now. If any of them remember the old guy in the Men's Warehouse suit who said he was a plumber. If any of them remember Michael's speech about unlearning what his blue-collar father taught him. I wonder if they learned anything. I know I did. I learned that sometimes the people who love you have to make the hardest choices. I learned that doing the right thing doesn't always feel good. I learned that integrity isn't something you can fake or finesse or pitch to investors. It's the foundation. It's what you build everything else on. And if you don't have it, if you cut corners and tell lies and convince yourself that the ends justify the means, eventually you'll find yourself standing in the ruins of everything you built, wondering where it all went wrong. The sun's starting to set now, painting the Portland sky, orange and gold. Beautiful evening. I should probably get ready for poker, make sure I have enough cash, maybe grab the good whiskey from the cabinet. But first, I'm going to sit here on my porch for a few minutes. Look at this house I bought with honest money. Think about the life I've built, the work I've done, the choices I've made. Is it the life Michael wanted? No. He wanted more, wanted bigger, wanted better. But it's the life I chose. And I can live with that. Because at the end of the day, the only person you have to face in the mirror is yourself. And I want to be able to look that person in the eye. Michael will get out of federal prison in about 18 months if he gets good behavior credit. I don't know if he'll call me. I don't know if we'll ever have a relationship again. But if he does call, if he does want to talk, I'll be here. Same house, same truck in the driveway, same old plumber who just couldn't understand complex systems thinking. And maybe, if he's ready, I'll tell him what I should have told him that night at the gala. That the most complex system of all is living with integrity, figuring out how to do the right thing when it costs you something, building a life that means something beyond the balance sheet. That's the real work. That's the hard work. Everything else is just plumbing.